Hello there, and welcome to Game Developer Techniques, where we play the first 20 minutes of a video game and talk about the techniques that game developers have used to create the game and how you can use the same effects in your game. Today, we've got Resident Evil. So, the first thing we have is this cutscene. It's not pre rendered, it's live action. So, what they'll have done there is recorded a video, overlaid it with effects like you would in a movie, and just put it onto some UI elements and then for the background of the main menu. And all of this is just UI where you can select it, and it's a script behind it which detects what you're inputting. So the character selection screen comes down to UI once again, and the whole thing is run by a script, and that script will be detecting your inputs and flipping around the UI elements, its animations, depending on what you're doing. And coming up now is one of the most infamous intro sequences to any video game. And again, the way this is done is it is purely a video. There's no UI overlay here, there's no trickery, no nothing. So they've recorded the actual video of all the actors that we're about to see. And the clever thing is they've taken that, they've put it through some mastering software, so they've got the all the visuals on the screen.
Cases have recently occurred in Raccoon City.
Yeah, it's literally put together like a movie would.
Being attacked by a group of about
And then all
people.
they've done there
Victims
is
were
just
apparently
put that
eaten.
straight
Bravo team
onto the
went to
screen.
hideout of the group
So it's
and
literally on the
disappeared.
disc of Resident Evil on PlayStation. It would be a video file which is played. And it's like a sequence of events that happens. So once you start the game, you've started that sequence. So that sequence of events is basically this intro scene that you can see, and after that it's timing it, and once it gets to the end, it then just carries on that sequence of events. So let's just carry on watching this, and I'll see if we can spot anything interesting throughout the intro sequence. I think it is worth noting some of these actors didn't even know that they were in Resident Evil. And it is well documented how this intro sequence was made. And I believe the channel, Residents of Evil, has managed to ultimately track down most of these actors. But again, with this, there's no video game trickery. This is all literally pre-recorded. It is just a video. Fantastic acting, isn't it? I suppose when you look back at the early days of PlayStation and how video games were all sprites and 2D before this, this was a whole leap forward in what video games could do. I imagine that some people didn't even realise that this was pre-recorded back in the day. They may have thought that these were video game graphics, which obviously we know now they aren't. So all of this is obviously real, but also not real. Again, this is all still a video. It's not anything special in terms of video game development. We get into the good stuff right after this. I just love watching this intro sequence because it is just so classic. But again, it just comes down to the fact it is all just a sequence of events.
Rebecca Chambers. Albert Wesker.
He's one heck of a villain, Albert Wesker. Again, it's all pre-rendered, created in some other software, and it's all just a video. At this point, though, we do have UI on the screen, so this is literally some UI text on the screen. And as we come into it, all of this is in real time, so it's not pre-rendered.
What a mansion!
So there will be a script that is controlling everything going on in that screen right now, from the camera changes,
Captain Wesker, where's Chris?
to the audio lines being spoken, to the models moving, animating.
Don't open that door!
Or it is a sequence of events where the script will tell it for Jill to do this,
What is it?
for Barry to do that,
Maybe it's Chris.
for Wesker to speak.
Now,
for
Jill,
Jill to move over there.
can you
It's
go?
all
I'm going
a
with you.
sequence of events.
Chris is our old
And
partner, you know.
the camera switches,
Okay, let me handle this.
the camera switches that we do see are a bit different in the actual game itself. Everything done in real time
Stay
here
alert.
is on a script. So what's happened here is they've gone through here and it's triggered into a new scene to load the dining room. So this is still a sequence. When the black lines disappear, there, that is when we have control. So at this point, as we walk down here, that is a trigger. And again, a trigger.
What is
And then
this?
finally, another trigger to initiate this sequence.
What is it?
Blood.
So with the cameras,
Jill,
there will
see if
be
you can find any other
these
clues.
backgrounds, which
I'll
are
be examining this.
just images,
Hope this
and
is
there will
not
be
Chris's blood.
colliders all the way around, which will prevent the character from walking into things. But a lot of this is done via triggers. So Jill's walked that way to another trigger, and it's triggered the camera change. All of this menu is all just UI based on your input. So another script will be running in the background to control all the UI on the screen. So walking up to the door, there'll be a trigger around the door, which allows us to activate that script that takes us to the door sequence and to the new scene. The door sequence is used to load up the next area of the game. And again, you can see in practice here, the trigger is used for the door. However, a different outcome happens. So again, with the cameras, it's a trigger that the player character, in this case Jill, walks into and something happens. With this here, again, it's a case of it's a trigger that Jill has walked into that, and then a movie sequence is played. So this is pre-rendered, this is not in-game, this is a pre-rendered video which will have been compiled and then played on top of the game itself. And with attacking, it's just a simple case of animations that are in play, reading player inputs, much in the same way as using a trigger to go through a door. But again, this is a different scene, which loads the following scene, so we can go to it.
Barry?
This is a sequence of events,
What is it?
so
Watch
all
out,
in real
it's a
time,
monster.
the script will be
Let me
controlling
take
what
care of
happens
this.
when.
What is it?
Kenneth was killed too. Maybe
Again,
by
that
this
script is
creature.
telling all the lines to play,
Anyway,
one after the
let's
other.
report this to Wesker.
So at this point, we now have Barry following us, and we can also pick up this shield, can't we? So this shield is part of a puzzle, and it's a case of having a trigger where when you enter that area and press a button, the script knows that you're in that area to pick up that item. So now what's happening is that the character, Barry, is following our main player, and that can be done quite easily. It's slight amount of AI involved because the game has to know what to follow. So this
Help me
is
look
another
for him, Jill.
sequence.
And don't leave this
But
hall
this
for the
sequence is a
time
bit
being.
different because you have to trigger something to continue the sequence. So what this will be is the standard sequence that we come into the hall. Under this hallway here is another trigger that sets a variable to say that yes, we've been under the hallway. In
Find
which
anything,
case,
Jill?
when we exit,
Nothing.
it carries on.
What is this all about? I can't figure it out at all.
Beats me too.
Now it's Wesker's time to disappear.
Again,
I don't know
whole
what's
sequence
going
of
on.
events.
Well, it can't be helped. Let's search for him separately. I'll check the dining room again.
Okay, I'll try the door on the opposite side.
This mansion is gigantic.
Good old
We could get
Resident
into
Evil.
trouble if we get lost. We should start from the first floor, okay? And Jill, here's a lockpick. It might be handy if you, the master of unlocking, take it with you.
Thanks. Maybe I'll need it.
So this is where we get the lockpick, and all that's happening here is Barry is not physically giving Jill anything, but a script is giving Jill something. So
Listen,
a
if
variable
something happens,
will have triggered
let's meet up in this hall.
to say Jill now has the lockpick. So there will be a bool in there to say for
This
example,
time I'll be there.
got lockpick, that will now be equals true. So that means that we can open other doors because that variable is now set as true, indicating that we have the lockpick. So when Jill regains control, go up to the door, initiate that trigger, go through the scene with the doors into the subsequent scene, and it's a case of this all involves triggers. So we can push these stairs like that, and then we can walk around and push them this way, because there will be colliders around those stairs to detect whether our player character is in the scene and still pressing the same direction on the stick or the arrows or however you want to move. So then it gives us the option of we can come down, so it knows in the trigger area that we can come down the steps. And here, because that bool has been set as got lockpick, we can effectively go through this scene into the next corridor. And if you know Resident Evil, you know what's coming up. So this is a classic example of activating a trigger. At that moment there, Jill has activated the trigger, which makes the dog jump through the window. It's not time-based, it's not anything based, but we will get the time-based stuff a little later on. Now, there is another trigger. Obviously, you can't see these triggers. They're like invisible barriers. So you come there, you've activated that trigger for the dog to basically jump through the window and try and attack Jill. And all this is based on animations and scripts talking back to one another. So at that point, shooting the dog, there is a script that's saying we're firing this raycast out, hit the dog, and the dog's saying yes, we've taken damage. Again, there's lots of scripts here that you can see that will effectively change the camera angles. That's all done via triggers. These are just different scenes, and the door scenes are literally only there to load the following scene. And every background you see is a pre-rendered image. There's nothing fancy going on. It's literally just an image. And the way it's designed is there are invisible colliders absolutely everywhere to prevent you from walking into walls. That's why if you see any Resident Evil games where they break the boundaries, She Says does videos like that, you may have seen them. That's why when you break the boundaries of Resident Evil, you will literally keep walking at the wall. So here we have a zombie, and let's talk about how this will react when they try to bite you. So when the two colliders, the one of the zombie and one of the player, collide, they check if they can be attacked. The script will see, yes they can. So then the zombie will play the animation of attacking, and then Jill will play the animation of being hurt. It will play the sound effect. Again, it's a small sequence of events to detect that something is happening. That's what a lot of Resident Evil is. It's triggers and sequences of events that will occur. So a good sequence of events that we can actually do is the old Jill sandwich. And if we head into that room now and go and pick up the shotgun, this is where variables come into play. So the way all of this sequence will work is we can go through here and into the next room. We pick up the shotgun. Now, when we pick up the shotgun, it will set a bool as true. So, for example, got shotgun. That bool will now be set as true because we've got the shotgun in our possession. If we were to put it back, it would end up being got shotgun false. And when we trigger this door, there will be a script that says, if got shotgun equals true, then perform this cutscene. And this sequence here is where the wall will come down. And there are many other sequences involved here, like Barry may not save you, depending if you triggered something else. But right now, got shotgun equals true, can Barry save equals true. And you'll notice as well, the screen, when you try opening the door, it's like it freezes. So whenever you try activating something, it will prevent the game from doing anything further, so it sets the time to 0.
Is that you,
So at this
Jill?
point we've triggered the other
What happened?
sequence where Barry will come and save us.
Help me, please. The door won't open.
So all of this is just a sequence of events again. There's no way of dying at this point. It's like, it's all on a script to say,
Hurry!
Barry kicks the door, sound effects play, run through, sound effect plays,
Oh, Barry.
characters animate, etc.,
That was
etc.,
too
etc.
close.
So that's
You
how
were
this
almost a
sequence of
Jill
events is
sandwich.
working.
You're
And
right.
again, that
Barry,
background
thanks for saving my life.
is just an image.
But Barry, didn't you say you're going back to the dining room to do some
One
research?
thing I will say about this,
Why
though,
on earth are
chances
you
are
here?
that behind that image there is no collision because you
Uh,
cannot physically
I
move
just had
around
something
in
I
this
wanted to
particular
check.
view of the
Now,
hall.
let's get
So this
back to
may just
searching for the
be
lost captain and
just an
Chris, shall
image
we?
with the character models at the forefront. And now it switches back to the main
Thank you,
view,
Barry.
Yeah.
and then back to that view where there's probably no collision. But back to this view, the collision will be there, so you cannot walk into the walls. Most of this game at this point, what we've discussed, is how the rest of the game is also built. So we can equip the shotgun. And again, the script that utilizes the UI knows what we have selected due to the button inputs. So that again is just scripts talking to one another to say that something's been fired at an enemy. The enemy has accepted that receiving of the shotgun and sent back that yes, it's now dead. Interacting with objects all comes to triggers again. So our player character is in the trigger area. If a button is pressed, then the text appears on screen. And this is all UI once again. Just detects what's going on, where you are, what you're doing, reading button inputs. Interacting with objects. So once we're in that trigger area, picking up the chemical, and we press a button, it will instantly play an animation, which is the first set of the sequence. It will then bring up the UI, the second set of the sequence, and then you can choose what you're doing. So then you have control of that sequence, and then you exit that sequence. All done via a script. So now we come back out. And this is where things start getting a bit different, because instead of going through doors to load next sequences, the stairs are the exact same thing. Literally the exact same thing. Instead of a door opening, it's just moving upstairs. But these stairs here are slightly different because they're already in the pre-rendered scene. So that's why you can effectively just walk up those stairs. Again, so that is a very small sequence. We're at the trigger of the door. And because we can unlock it, it's telling us we can unlock it, and then we do so. Again, scripts talking back to one another about firing shots at an enemy and sending that information back. That's a trigger with a small sequence to say we can't get through, and then that sequence of events throws up the text on the screen, plays the sound effect. And as we come through here,
Barry!
again, this is just a sequence that
Jill,
plays that
what's
script
going on?
that will do one
Any
line after the
clues?
other, telling it
No,
what to do.
but something's wrong with this house.
Whoa. This hall is dangerous. Maybe it's better to secure our escape route first. There must be a back door somewhere. Let's try to find it first, shall we?
Okay, let's separate again.
It's all
Just a moment.
animations that are being played
I
at the
found
exact
something.
right moment. So a
What
script
is
will be
it?
telling those characters to
It's a
perform
weapon.
this animation.
It's really powerful, especially against living things. Better take it with you.
But how about you, Barry?
So what Barry hands over here
This.
Thank you.
is not a
I'll
physical
take this
item.
then.
It is all done via a variable. So a variable will now say that Jill has access to acid rounds, 6 of them. So you never physically see that being handed from Barry. It's just data in a script that's being transferred to add a value. And the steps here are the same as what we saw previously. So this is all one scene, but then to load the bottom, it has to go into another scene to load, which is why you can walk down the first set of stairs, but not walk down these set. So again, it's loaded up the next scene, back here. And when you stop and think about it and try and understand how many triggers there actually are for the cameras, there are a lot. It's well done, very well done. To know that each and every background is just an image. Think of how many images there are that exist in this game. So let's now take a look at how we can utilize puzzles and how puzzles work and how variables will talk to each other to know that something can be done. If we go into the piano room and try playing the piano, we wouldn't be able to do anything because there is no variable set to say that we have the required item. So again, trigger to push that out of the way. There is an item there to pick up. Once we pick up the music notes, that will set a variable to say we now have it, which means interacting with the piano means that we can select this, use it, and it will trigger the sequence Moonlight Sonata. I don't think there's a copyright on Moonlight Sonata, so I think I'm okay with this one. So again, this sequence has been activated. At the end of the sequence, it will raise that upwards, which means we can continue on with solving this puzzle. So if Jill goes in there, the next sequence will occur. So we take this, and that is saying bool, gold emblem equals true. But at this point, we have the wood and gold emblem both equals true, and that door cannot open if both are true. So therefore, setting this in there will say false, which means gold equals true, wood equals false, which means that door can open up. So again, it's all just transferring variables between each other, making the scripts understand, and that's how these puzzles can be created. It's really quite simple, in all honesty. There's no complexity to anything in Resident Evil. So again, triggering a door, just imagine it in Unity, it's just a cube, trigger it, on trigger enter. And then again, we're inside another trigger, that's why we're able to interact with that. And as long as we're inside this trigger object, we can go down and select the gold emblem and put it in place. And then that will play a sequence which moves the clock. So an animation is played there. And then we can go and pick it up. Again, a trigger has now appeared, so we can pick up the key that is in here. So that trigger wasn't there previously. When we have activated this puzzle and completed it, the script then tells that trigger to appear. And with things like first aid sprays and the herbs, all that is a case of is Jill has a value assigned to her health, let's say 100. Every time you get bitten, it reduces by 10, which means that if you use a first aid spray, it will reset the number to 100. So ink ribbons are a way of saving Resident Evil, and we can do that by this, and all this will be, the way that this will save is it will collect various aspects of what you've done so far. It will take multiple variables and it will assign it to a single area, so as when it loads, it can reload up all those variables. And with all of that, that's pretty much how it's done. So ultimately, what that means is that for Resident Evil, everything that we've just spoke about is quite literally how the game is made. Whether it is just triggers, whether it is just sequence of events, variables, literally those three things is how it can all be achieved. With the camera angles, you could effectively have a trigger cube, if you're in Unity, for example, with an on-trigger enter script. So when you enter that trigger, whatever is in your script will run. And in this case, it's a case of turning one camera off and putting one camera on. But effectively, what it is for the older Resident Evil games is it could just be a case of switching whatever image is in the background. But the reason the doors exist is to literally load the next segment. Back in the day of the PlayStation, games were quite large for the time, so they had to load these things in and out. And obviously, assets, although we consider them very, very small now, were quite large back then. So they had to find clever ways of using loading. In this case, it was just using some doors. So I hope this video has been useful to some extent. It's great to have a look at some of these video games and understand how developers do different things. As said in the case of Resident Evil, it is genuinely just three things, and that's really, really interesting to know. It's simple, but back then it wasn't as simple as what you thought because they were developing these new techniques. There'll be some videos on the screen now if you fancy clicking some of those and seeing more content just like this. There's also a little subscribe button just down below if you fancy subscribing and maybe seeing some more videos in the future. Hopefully, I do see you in one of my upcoming videos, but until then, thank you very much for watching and take care.